Right now, your dog or your cat is somewhere in the room with you. And if you looked into their eyes, really looked, you'd feel that strange little question rise up in you. Is anyone in there? Is somebody actually looking back? We tell ourselves the answer is a soft, comforting maybe, a warm animal running on instinct, food and sleep and love, but not really aware. Not the way you are. But over the last 50 years, in labs from New York to the coral reefs of the Pacific, scientists have been quietly dismantling that assumption. And what they've found is stranger and lonelier and more beautiful than we were ready for. Because the creature curled up beside you may not just be alive, it may know that it is. So, does it? Does an animal actually know that it exists? That it's a someone, a self, an I looking out at the world? The answer rewrites everything we thought we knew about the mirror, about memory, and about death itself. Let's start with the oldest question we've ever asked a mind that wasn't ours. Do you know that's you? In 1970, a psychologist named Gordon Gallup Jr. did something deceptively simple. He put a mirror in front of a chimpanzee. At first, the chimp did what almost any animal does. It treated the reflection as a stranger, threatening it, displaying at it. But after a few days, something shifted. It stopped performing for the stranger and started using the mirror. It picked bits of food from its teeth. It examined parts of its body it had never once seen. So Gallup ran the test that made history. He anesthetized the chimps and painted an odorless red mark above one eyebrow, somewhere they could only ever see in a reflection. When they woke and caught sight of themselves, they reached up and touched the mark, on their own face, not the glass. They had grasped a thought most of us assume is uniquely human. That thing in the mirror is me. For decades, that seemed to be a nearly exclusive club. Then, one by one, the doors started opening. In 2001, Diana Race and Lori Marino marked bottlenose dolphins and watched them twist and contort to inspect the spots in an underwater mirror. In 2006, at the Bronx Zoo, an Asian elephant named Happy stood before a giant mirror, lifted her trunk, and touched a white X painted on her forehead, a moment the researchers Joshua Plotnick and Franz de Waal had waited years to witness. 2 years after that, a magpie, a bird with a brain built nothing like ours, did the very same thing, scratching at a colored dot on its throat. Here's what's fascinating: these animals share almost no evolutionary path. A dolphin, an elephant, a bird, separated by hundreds of millions of years of branching, and yet each one, alone in front of a piece of glass, arrived at the same quiet realization: me. This isn't one lucky twig on the tree of life. It's a door that evolution has pushed open again and again. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. A mirror only proves an animal can recognize its own body. A reflection isn't a soul. Seeing your face isn't the same as knowing you're a self. And that's a completely fair objection. In fact, it's the exact wall that stops most people from taking any of this seriously. So let's knock it down. Because your dog famously fails the mirror test. It stares blankly or doesn't look at all. For years, that was taken as proof that dogs simply aren't self aware. But in 2017, a cognitive scientist named Alexandra Horowitz at Barnard College pointed out the obvious thing we'd all missed. A dog's world isn't built out of light, it's built out of smell. So she designed an olfactory mirror. She presented dogs with canisters holding their own urine and canisters holding their own scent that she had secretly altered. The dogs barely bothered with their own plain odor. They already knew it. But the modified version, their smell but changed, stopped them cold. They investigated it long and hard, exactly the way a chimp inspects a strange mark on its face. A dog knows the scent of itself. It just recognizes me with its nose instead of its eyes. And if you think self recognition needs a big mammal brain at all, consider what happened in 2019. A researcher named Masanori Koda marked a cleaner wrasse, a fish the size of your finger, and set it in front of a mirror. The fish tried to scrape the mark off its own throat against the sand, and only when the mirror was there, a fish, passing a test we once believed set humans apart from all of creation. But recognizing your own body is just the doorway. The deeper question is this: does the animal have an inner life it can look in on? In 2007, the researchers Alison Futt and Jonathan Crystal gave rats a test they could choose to take or decline. A big reward for a correct answer, nothing for a wrong one. When the test was easy, the rats took it. When it was too hard to call, they walked away, declining exactly the way you would when you know that you don't know. That's metacognition, not just thinking, but knowing something about your own mind. And then there is memory. Nicola Clayton at the University of Cambridge showed that scrub jays remember not only where they hid their food, but what they hid and how long ago, going back for the perishable worms first, before they rot, and saving the nuts for later. They travel back in their minds to a specific moment they personally lived through. And you cannot revisit your own past unless there is a you who was there in the first place. So here is where the wonder turns into something that aches. If an animal knows that it is, does it also know that one day it won't be? Watch an elephant herd come upon the bones of their own dead. In 2006, the behavioral ecologist Karen McComb laid out skulls and ivory in front of wild African elephants. They ignored the skulls of buffalo and rhino entirely, but the bones of their own kind, those they returned to, they stood over them. They lifted the skulls with their trunks, turned them, ran the tips of their trunks slowly along the tusks, gently for far longer than they touched anything else. Not idle curiosity, recognition. Crows do it too. In 2015, the biologist Kaylee Swift laid out dead crows and watched the living ones gather above them by the dozen, shrieking a kind of funeral, then go silent and refuse to return to that place for days. And in 2012, the science finally caught up with the animals. At the University of Cambridge, a group of the world's leading neuroscientists signed a document called the Cambridge Declaration on Consciousness. They signed it that same evening in the presence of Stephen Hawking. Its conclusion was blunt. Humans are not unique in possessing the biological machinery of consciousness. Mammals, birds, even the octopus, they have it too. The awareness you feel behind your own eyes is not some solitary flame in a dark and empty universe. It is everywhere. It is in the room with you. For most of our history, we told ourselves the exact opposite. The philosopher Rene Descartes called animals mere machines, clockwork that could yelp but could not truly suffer. We built whole industries on that idea. And it took us 400 years and a mountain of evidence to finally admit what any child petting a dog already suspects: someone is home. So the next time your dog rests its chin on your knee or your cat watches you from across the room, sit for a second with what that actually is: not an instinct, a witness, a life, aware of its own living, choosing to spend a piece of it right next to you. And here is the strange gift buried inside all of it. You know that you're alive, but you also carry the weight of knowing it ends. You lie awake at 3 in the morning doing the math on your own mortality. Your dog almost certainly does not. It knows that it is without the cold knowledge of when it won't be. It has the light of being awake without the shadow. You get the whole picture, and the whole picture includes the ending. They get the pure, bright now, the walk, the sun on the floor, your hand on their head, with nothing at all hanging over it. We even buried the truth in the word itself. Animal comes from the Latin anima, breath, soul, the living spark. For centuries, we said that word every single day and forgot what we were saying. The creature in your home was never an it, it was always an anima, a someone, breathing beside you, awake in a way you were taught to believe only you could be, and most of us never even knew it was there.